an experienced physician who has dedicated over 6 decades of his life to medicine, now at 92 years old, confidently asserts that the most critical loss for an elderly person is stability in their legs. He emphasizes that when support fails, the entire essence of being is jeopardized. Independence, the ability to move autonomously, a sense of security, and even the simple joy of walking. Most alarmingly, this process often begins with subtle signs that people tend to ignore. Difficulty rising from a chair, unexplained fatigue during movement, frequent stumbling, and pain while walking. However, what concerns him most are not just the symptoms themselves, but the fact that most elderly individuals unknowingly, yet steadily, make daily mistakes that weaken their legs. He admits that he himself once mistakenly believed these changes were an inevitable consequence of old age. However, delving into the mechanisms of muscle mass loss in later life, he concluded that aging itself is only part of a complex picture. A significant portion of the problem lies in incorrect, subtle, and highly detrimental habits that gradually deplete muscle strength, impair circulation, and accelerate overall physical decline. Scientific research confirms that over 60% of people over 70 experience a substantial reduction in leg strength. This loss, data shows, directly correlates with the risk of falls, the need for hospitalization, and even premature death. Therefore, if a person feels tired while walking, experiences balance issues, weakness in the lower limbs, or difficulty climbing stairs, they should be vigilant. The doctor intends to reveal the 6 most serious mistakes that undermine leg health in the elderly and offer effective alternatives. Finally, he promises to share a natural and accessible recipe he still uses today, a powerful combination of ingredients that helps strengthen muscles, improve blood flow, and maintain confidence with every step. Mistake number 1. Prolonged sitting without leg movement. Undoubtedly, this is one of the most widespread and simultaneously detrimental habits. The most alarming aspect is that its danger often goes completely unnoticed. A typical scenario: an elderly person comfortably settles in front of the TV, then moves on to eat, after which they drift into a nap, and thus, without realizing it, spend most of the day in a state of complete rest. Sometimes, the only reason to get up is to use the restroom. While such a lifestyle may seem perfectly normal, it actually carries serious risks. In old age, prolonged sitting comes at a high cost to health. When the muscles of the lower limbs remain inactive, the body begins to perceive them as superfluous, and anything deemed unnecessary undergoes atrophy. This phenomenon is known as sarcopenia, a gradual and unnoticed decrease in muscle mass. Furthermore, prolonged sitting negatively affects circulation. Blood stagnates in the feet, veins dilate, and oxygen delivery to muscle tissue slows down. As a result, feelings of heaviness in the legs, stiffness, and significant difficulty standing up after a long period of immobility arise. A study published in the reputable Journal of Aging and Physical Activity convincingly demonstrated that older adults who spend more than 6 hours daily sitting face a 44% increased risk of functional loss in their legs, even if they engage in physical exercise at other times of the day. In the doctor's personal experience, changes began with a simple but firm commitment to stand up every 40 or 50 minutes, even if it only meant a short walk around the house or standing for 2 minutes. He also began integrating light movements into his routine, such as standing up and sitting down on a chair without using support, or a 5-minute walk down the hallway after lunch. It's important to note that this isn't about strenuous workouts, but about preventing the body from mistakenly concluding that the lower limbs have lost their significance. Mistake number 2. Insufficient protein intake for muscle strength. This mistake is far more common than many might imagine, and the doctor himself admits to making it for many years. For a long time, he was convinced that his diet was perfectly adequate: a little rice, beans, vegetables, and so on. However, after turning 70, he began to notice an inexplicable decline in leg strength, despite having no obvious illnesses. It was then that he realized the true cause. His muscles were becoming nutrient deficient. In old age, the body requires significantly more protein to maintain muscle mass, which was previously preserved effortlessly. As years pass, the process of muscle protein synthesis slows down and muscles begin to break down even without physical exertion. In other words, even at rest, strength is lost. And if protein intake is insufficient, the body simply cannot restore what has already been lost. The problem is compounded by the fact that many elderly people eat little, avoid meat products, or adhere to an unbalanced diet, which directly leads to the development of sarcopenia. A study published in the journal Clinical Nutrition found that older adults consuming less than 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight per day have a significantly increased risk of developing muscle weakness, loss of balance, and frequent falls. However, there's good news. Correcting this situation is relatively simple. When the doctor increased his protein intake, he felt a clear difference in his leg stability. Today, he consistently includes protein in all his meals throughout the day, doing so simply and naturally. For breakfast, he usually chooses a boiled egg with a piece of white cheese or natural yogurt with oatmeal. At lunchtime, he always includes a portion of lean meat, such as roasted chicken, fish, or even a little stewed ground meat with vegetables. During the day, he sometimes snacks on a handful of nuts or a slice of whole grain bread with hummus. And for dinner, he prefers something light, chicken soup or even oatmeal with milk. The point is not excess, but to provide the body with the necessary elements to keep its structure alive and functional, because without enough protein, the foundation crumbles and the legs are the first to suffer. Mistake number 3. Consuming foods that cause muscle inflammation and block circulation. For a long time, the doctor ate like most people: white bread for breakfast, rice and pasta for lunch, sodas on weekends, sometimes sweet cookies during the day. There was seemingly nothing abnormal about it. However, over time, he began to notice that his legs felt heavier, tired faster, and recovery after walks took significantly longer. The true reason for these changes lay in his diet. Indeed, many foods that have become common for older adults are powerful sources of inflammatory processes. They subtly but steadily impair circulation, contribute to increased swelling in the legs, reduce oxygen saturation in muscles, and make tissues more fragile. Such foods include refined flour, excessive sugar, fried foods, processed meats, carbonated drinks, factory-made sweets, and ready-to-eat meals. All these components harm the body from within, even if their negative effects are not immediately felt. In old age, such a diet has an even more destructive effect, as the body no longer copes as effectively with cleansing and recovery processes, and negative consequences become more apparent. Legs lose strength, stiffness increases, blood vessels become inflamed, and vital energy steadily drains away. A study published in the authoritative Inflammation Research convincingly demonstrated that older adults whose diets were rich in ultra-processed foods showed significantly higher levels of inflammatory markers in muscle tissues, as well as poorer results in walking tests and overall strength. For the doctor in question, changes began with small but significant dietary substitutions. Instead of his usual white bread, he started preferring real whole grain bread with minimal ingredients. Sugar was replaced with natural fruits, such as a banana or a baked apple. He began actively incorporating natural foods into his diet: root vegetables, fresh greens, eggs, olive oil, and whole grains. Gradually, he eliminated everything from his menu that didn't give him energy but only caused a feeling of heaviness in his legs. Within a few days, he felt a noticeable difference. Swelling decreased, walking felt lighter, and even knee pain became less pronounced. The principle is simple. If a person wants their legs to support them, they must stop feeding them what destroys them from within. Circulation will not fail to respond, muscles will react, and strength will gradually return. Mistake number 4: believing that hand movements are enough to keep the body active. This mistake is particularly insidious because many older adults mistakenly believe they lead an active lifestyle by performing various hand actions: cleaning the kitchen, sweeping, writing, knitting, sorting papers, or even using the phone. Undoubtedly, These actions contribute to maintaining some movement, but they hardly engage the lower limbs. And here's the key problem. Leg strength is maintained only when those legs are actively used. This means needing to stand up, walk, climb stairs, squat, bear weight on the legs, even if only for a few minutes a day. If this doesn't happen, the muscles supporting the torso, hips, thighs, and knee joints begin to deactivate, and over time, they dangerously weaken. Physiologists call this phenomenon localized muscle hypoactivity. The body, realizing that this area is no longer being used, begins to conserve energy by reducing muscle mass in that zone. The result is obvious. Legs become weak, gait slows, and the risk of stumbling and falling sharply increases. A study published in the journal Gerontology showed that older adults who actively use their hands throughout the day but do not perform targeted leg movements lose lower limb function significantly faster, especially concerning the quadriceps and ankle stabilizing muscles. In the doctor's personal experience, the changes were simple but consistent. He began to include at least 2 moments in his routine to consciously move his legs. In the morning, he takes a light walk around the house or yard, and at the end of the day, he performs 3 or 4 simple exercises. He stands up and sits down on a chair without using his hands, steps up and down one stair, or even simulates walking in place for 1 or 2 minutes. This is not gymnastics in the usual sense, nor is it going to the gym. It's simply a way of telling his body, these legs are still important. And when the body understands this, it responds with an influx of strength. Mistake number 5, ignoring posture and body alignment when walking, sitting, or standing. This is a subtle, but with age, quite costly mistake. Many people mistakenly believe that posture is merely a matter of aesthetics or appearance. However, in reality, it is the fundamental basis for proper force distribution throughout the entire body. And when this foundation loses balance, the legs are the first to suffer. With years, older adults often develop a stoop, shoulders drop, and weight is unevenly distributed. Sometimes a person leans excessively to one side, shuffles their feet, or gets up from a chair with excessive effort. All of this might seem like minor details, but they are far from it. These are micro habits that create excessive strain on the knees, hip joints, and calf muscles. The result: pain, joint wear, loss of balance, and reduced functional strength. A study published in the journal Geriatric Physical Therapy showed that older adults with chronically poor posture are up to 48% more likely to lose muscle mass in their legs and fall more frequently, even in familiar surroundings, such as their own home. In the doctor's case, he had to relearn how to hold his body correctly. The doctor started with minor but fundamental changes. He began to sit with both feet firmly on the floor, stand up by pushing with his legs rather than his hands, walk looking straight ahead, with slightly open shoulders and a slight tension in the abdominal area. These seemingly simple details actually reconfigure the entire posture and restore the legs to the supportive function they should perform. If a person feels their legs are failing them, it's important to pay attention not only to diet or physical activity level. It's also necessary to analyze how they move, because sometimes the problem lies not in weakness, but in a disruption of proper body alignment. Mistake number 6, believing it's too late to restore leg strength. This is perhaps the cruelest of all mistakes, as it stems not from the physical state of the body, but from a mental attitude. Many older adults, after a fall, persistent pain, or even ordinary fatigue while walking, begin to believe that nothing can be changed, that weakness is permanent, and that training their legs is useless. And this thought, unfortunately, becomes a sentence to further decline. The truth is that the body certainly ages, but does not stop responding to stimuli. Even at 80, 90, or 100 years old, muscles are still capable of becoming stronger if they receive the right load. And when an elderly person refuses to use their legs, the body perceives this as a command. These structures are no longer needed and begins to deactivate them. This phenomenon is called learned helplessness, a vicious cycle in which lack of movement leads to atrophy, which causes insecurity, and that, in turn, leads to even less use of the limbs. Thus, many lose strength not due to age, but due to a lack of necessary stimulation. A study published in the journal Age and Aging observed older adults up to 90 years old who began performing light leg strengthening exercises under professional supervision and guidance. The result was impressive. Over 80% of them regained strength, balance, and the ability to safely cover significant distances. And all this was achieved in just a few weeks. Therefore, in addition to the simple exercises already mentioned, the doctor's main recommendation for those making this mistake is to start each day with one simple question. What can I do today to prove that I still control my legs, and then perform any of those actions? One can walk to the gate and back. One can stand for 5 seconds without support. One can slowly and confidently descend one step. The second action, keep a diary or a simple note on the refrigerator that says, "Today I moved, today I did not give up." This changes the mental attitude, restores self-confidence, because the most dangerous paralysis in old age is not physical, it is emotional. So, if a person feels they're losing strength, they should start breaking that mindset right now. Don't wait until you feel strong to start moving. You need to move to start feeling strong. Now that the 6 mistakes that destroy legs in old age are known, it's time to change everything, because none of these mistakes have to remain part of anyone's life. Correcting habits, reactivating muscles, and properly nourishing the body, all of this is within everyone's reach. And it doesn't require magic formulas, let alone medicines. That's why, in conclusion, the doctor wishes to give something special. A natural recipe that he uses every day and that helps him maintain strength and circulation in his legs even after 90 years old. It's a simple mixture made from accessible ingredients, but together they form a true tonic of energy and stability for the entire body. To prepare it, you will need half a raw beet, grated immediately before consumption, the juice of 1 fresh orange, 1 teaspoon of grated ginger, a pinch of turmeric powder, and 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. All ingredients should be mixed in a glass, stirred thoroughly, and drunk on an empty stomach immediately after waking up, at least 5 times a week. This combination has a scientific basis. Beetroot, for example, helps increase nitric oxide levels, which leads to vasodilation and improved blood supply to the muscles. One of the key components of this recipe, orange, is rich in vitamin C, which plays an important role in protecting blood vessels and promotes more efficient iron absorption by the body. Ginger and turmeric, in turn, are known for their anti-inflammatory properties, helping to reduce inflammatory processes that can undermine muscle strength. The addition of olive oil contributes to better absorption of all these valuable components. This drink has become a daily ritual for the doctor, preparing his body for active movement. He emphasizes that when this tonic is combined with simple but regular actions, such as getting up from a chair without support, taking extra walks, and maintaining an active posture, the results are quick to follow. Circulation noticeably improves, stability returns, and with it, confidence in one's own abilities is restored. If this message resonated with the reader, it's important to remember, the human body is still capable of responding to changes, improving, and recovering, regardless of age. At 92, the doctor continues to stand confidently on his feet not by chance, but by conscious decision and consistent action. He is convinced that everyone is capable of this. It all starts with a choice, and that choice can be made right now.